When did we start with the equipment? I
The equipment-
truthfully don't know the year, but
We did it every 3, I think it was every 3 years.
At that time, 3
Right,
years.
yeah.
And so it was in Allentown, I think it was in the early 70s.
that would make sense.
And then it just started getting bigger and bigger, and that was one of the factors that it moved. because of that.
And the point I was trying to make is because we had vendors on the committee, they're the guys that have to pay all the money to bring that equipment. Today, it's unbelievable the size of the equipment, but even back then, to bring a plow truck from Minneapolis to Pittsburgh is expensive, and a lot of the Midwestern people were the snow flies out there. They were a lot of the Snow Blast was from Colorado.
Schmidt was a big contributor because Schmidt used to bring the equipment and sponsor a lot of it.
Michigan, yeah, and they're the guys that we asked. I know when we were on a committee, we asked them, well, what do you think? And we wanted to do it more often, but they said, hey, oh, wait a minute, it's too expensive. But that was the good thing about having the vendors on the committee, I think.
Well, it's the perfect balance. What's happened here, it grew legs. And to have an event like this, you have to have an economic engine to drive it. Otherwise, you're just running a school that's needed. But the combination of the success of the vendors with the equipment and selling equipment types like brooms and now the chemical issue and then the technical communications part, it's given these vendors a wonderful forum to sell their wares.
Well, and that, and the impetus started with the people attending the Snow Symposium, because you can think back, Dick, a lot of the airports when it was regulated, we had pretty easy flow of operations, but then deregulation hit.
Right.
And when deregulation hit, it just turned everything upside down, because now you had this, they all come in at one time, they all leave at one time, and now your runway closure time has to be decreased and so forth and so on. And
They work with the tower, they got spacing, they'd make a run and the plane's coming in. So most airports try and close a runway, as now you try and close it, clean it off, get it done, and give it back very quickly. But that's the need for it. But they do it between movements.
We used to do the same thing. And I think the other thing equipment year did is that we'd always see an influx of mechanics. And you'd see a lot more that wanted to see the equipment, see how, and they'd go out there with the manufacturers, which they liked, and ask serious questions about the equipment.
in brooms, now we need bigger stuff, faster stuff, more efficient, and more operator friendly. And so a lot of the talk started in the improvement of that equipment, the growing and improving of that equipment started right here at the Snow Symposium.
The mechanics came there to look, and you valued their opinions.
Or if you had a problem, you could go to the piece of equipment and say, no, this is the piece I'm having a problem with. The mechanic would be talking to the salesman, and now you're talking not on the phone or sending a picture, because sometimes you lose, but the communications, that you could walk right out there and say, this is the piece.
And manufacturers did pay attention, because
Yes,
there
they
were
did.
times
Yes, they did.
they actually modified equipment from suggestions that were made by the mechanics at the conference itself.
And you talk about
and
something-
some of them came from the idea corners.
Yeah.
I mean,
That
it's
was-
amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing what
A simple piece.
what guys will
Solve a
come up
problem.
with to make the equipment work better
Yeah.
in their shops by welding a piece of steel somewhere, or it's
Knock
amazing.
down the vibration or whatever.
And the vendors did listen to that. I remember early on in Allentown, Jim, I think you were on the panel with me, that we had a session where it was like a gripe session or a complaint section where we got after the manufacturers pretty good, didn't we?
did.
I mean, about the seat, a guy's in the seat for 8 hours, and what, that's might as well be a metal seat there. I mean, give us some comfort, and things like that. And the feedback that we gave to the manufacturers helped the progression of the equipment as it went on. I know it. A lot of those ideas came from the Snowpo.
Well, I'm looking at some of these equipment that's on display now, and I'm taken back. It's like sitting in your living room. You got a GPS, you got a color screen. You don't have to look out the window. It's
amazing
It just goes
what
by
they have.
itself.
But we used to have Walter snowplows in Pittsburgh. And at the Snowpo, I was telling the guy, I'd like to get another one, but on the right side, when you're plowing left to right, you got the engine cowling here, and you can't see the tip of the blade. So what happened was, over a year or so, they somehow moved the the engine back a little bit, cut the cowling down where you could see the end of the plow. I mean, that's just one idea, but that happened over years and years. Every year somebody would tell somebody
But
something.
you think of all those little things like that little bit of visibility so you can see the heel of the
right.
plow.
Right.
But you know what? That's safety. That's safety for the crew, that's safety for the operator. And so take that into effect. Once you brought the safety thing up and the ergonomics started coming into the play, these manufacturers listened because there was a change coming and they knew it.
Well, there's a lot of things. There was noise, and I remember the first time they had the tow behind broom with the blower
Yeah.
and everything else, and I was with Tommy Long, and he looked at me, he said, to get somebody to drive it, he said, I have to get 3 unions in there. Because there were issues, because
Oh, yeah.
certain unions only drove
Yeah.
the brooms, because they had a plow, it had a broom, and then it had the blower on the back.
It was nice. They'd get a small group of people around each piece of equipment, broom, plow, blower, and such, and say, well, what do you do with this thing at your airport? And some very good discussions came out of
And
it.
then they used to let them drive it, because
Oh,
we
yeah.
used to have our drivers go with them, and guys like, yourselves, that would go with a kid that never drove one of them before and just give an idea of what it was.
Yeah. And Dickie Dalton and I were kind of, that was our little project, and it was funny. He'd always wait for the news cameras to come. They'd always come during that equipment show, or up at the hangar, and he'd always beat me to the punch. He said, "Long, I got you again." I said, he got on camera, and they tortured me about that. But that was Dickie. He was good. He was good getting in front of a camera. But that was a good show, the On Hands Workshop, and I'm glad they're still doing it. That's one of the good things we did up there in Buffalo.
So why don't we just finish up? Anybody have a major point that has not been said? Jim?
Well, I'd like to say something about we were talking earlier, and I wanted to bring it up. I mean, I remember you were talking friction testing. I remember when they first come out with this product, UCAR de-icing fluid, and I said, "What in the hell is that?" Well, the thing about the Snow Symposium is, as Terry said, making friends with people. I always tell my guys when I send them, I said, don't you dare stay with the Pittsburgh people when you go up there. You go meet people that do the same job as you at another airport, because you can see these guys every day. Well, that happened with me and Dick Chuck. They would meet up at the Snow Symposium, and then they'd go back and have problems with the blowers or the brooms, and then they'd do the same thing. They'd get on the phone and say, "Hey, what are you doing about this?" And that's what, to me, that's what's the greatest thing in the world about the Snowpo. It's, you meet guys that do the same thing, and then you get back to your airport and you say, I'm going to call Chuck up and see what he did up. I can't get this thing to work right. And that has, like I said, that goes on all the time. And I think that's one of the best things about it.
What about the friction measurement? We all went through the friction measurement.
Saab?
We had Saabs and KJ Law and everything else.
Oh, we bought the first one.
Why don't you
Yes,
tell
did.
them about the first friction measurement truck?
Oh, the Irish Setter.
Yes,
The
sir.
The dog.
Tell them, but
Well,
people don't know about it. We
Well,
know.
for all you young folks that have never been around the airports, the friction measurement did start out with a setter sitting on the right side of you in your truck, or a thermos jug, and if you hit the brakes and the dog's nose hit the windshield, that was good braking. And anything else really didn't matter,
That's
Yep.
a true story.
It is.
Yeah.
Why did you leave? Why did you leave Allentown?
We became too big.
Outgrew it.
To be truthful,
Off-duty firemen were doing
But
that.
it was a combination of things also. It was getting we were at capacity as far as the banquet facility. We were capacity with the
the
equipment.
numbers kept rising.
With the
Annual
equipment.
annual
and,
attendance.
And that's when a number of airports bid on it, and we were fortunate enough to get it. And but the big thing there was the airport made a firm commitment to the conference to give the people, and we used our facility, and they had the maintenance garage. That's when we started the driver training and the cookouts for the drivers and things like that at the driver training class. And so all these factors, and the fact that we could get over 700 people in the banquet facility, and the manufacturers, there were more manufacturers that wanted to come and wanted to display their equipment. And here again, where financial came in, at the time, the convention center offered us a convention center for nothing.
Well, there's a long story before that. I mean, the Radisson just went downhill so
Well,
bad.
they went, that's true too.
And we had a meeting with the Radisson brass up in Buffalo. I don't know what year that was, but anyway, the hotel was just falling apart. And we had to,
Actually, I
whatever.
didn't get ahead of myself. I was just telling what happened because that we went down to the convention
Well,
center.
the
I'm
good-
just saying with the equipment. And we did that while it was at the Radisson.
The funny story is, we had the vice president of the Radisson, or whatever he was, head man from another city, came in for the meeting, and he said, this hotel is not profitable enough for us, and we're not going to put any money into it. Well, Bob said, well, then we're not going to stay there. Bob goes downtown to the convention center in Buffalo and says, we got a problem, we need a place to go. And what did they tell you? They were
Well,
excited.
the Buffalo Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Buffalo Convention Center, and then the Hyatt, they all got together and in a short amount of time offered a package. And I believe we moved the next year, didn't we?
Yeah, and I don't think we paid a dime for the convention center the first year.
I don't know if we do now, but at that time, no.
Yeah, they couldn't believe that we were bringing it from the airport downtown. They've been wanting to get it for a number of years, she
Yeah.
said.
Well, we had
They were
had,
excited about it.
one of our annual chapter conferences was downtown at the Hyatt. And we had such a good experience with that. I think it was shortly thereafter that you moved it down. And it was the quality of the hotel.
Oh, yeah.
That's what happened at George Washington, I was told.
Yeah,
It just
they ran
got
out of
old.
space.
Yeah.
And it had a space, got old, and the Radisson was new at the time. It was a logical
When we
step.
went there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe they even had a
They
Playboy
remodeled
club
it.
in there, didn't they?
Actually, it used to be a Playboy Club, and it was
Right.
called, it was a Ramada, actually.
Yeah, the
And then
Ramada was the
and then they changed it to a Radisson Renaissance.
And that was in '86 we went up there. I think one of our proudest moments with the move from Allentown to Buffalo was, I'll be perfectly honest, Wally was not happy that it left his hometown. It was his baby. We felt like we took his baby away from him.
Red was furious.
Red McFarland, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, after a few years in Buffalo, we all put Wiley on a pedestal. He was our hero, just for getting this thing going, because we're all maintenance guys, and this was the greatest thing in the world. So we had to make him feel welcome when he came to Buffalo, and Bob took care of that. Long story short, he turned up loving Buffalo. He said, you guys are doing a great job, which made us all feel good.
And I hope I pronounce it right. It's Trabuccio Crystal, I believe it's called. And they make the eagles for the presidents. And so what we did, Sam Buscarino, his cousin owned the place that made all these things. So we had a buffalo made up. And it was on granite. And every one was unique to itself. And we're talking, these things ran in the thousands. And we got it for a very good price. And I remember when I presented it to Wiley, he goes, this is really a nice glass buffalo.
That's Wiley.
Yeah, but he did. He paid us a big compliment. He said, you guys are carrying the ball well.
Well, Wiley was a very unassuming person, such a genuine gentleman.
He was a gentleman's
Yes, he
gentleman.
He was.
Well, you know what, but he made it easier for the transition too. He was a class act, and
Yeah.
that made a big difference too. And I remember at the 25th, Red McFarland, he came up to me and he said, I was wrong. He said, you guys kept the tradition and did a nice job. So, but that was a tribute to the committee and the people that were on it that kept focused.
Well, we were.
But that's where we got our direction, though. We got it from Wally and all those guys that Dick mentioned earlier.
We were mentored by him, really.
You know,
I think the main thing, like Bob said, is you learn and you get to meet everybody. But what was back in our day, when we were all out there on that runway, we watched the snow come in. I'd call Minneapolis up. I said, what are you guys getting? 2 days later, we'd get it. Here in Pennsylvania would call me. What do you get? Tell them. They'd get it. Buddy, Tommy, they'd call. It was like a underline train or something,
Yeah.
Underground Railroad. You talk to each other, and you were ahead. You were the weather channel for them. Now they got the weather channel where you just turn on the channel and there it is, and they'll show you everything. And it's the communications. When we were out there on that runway, they said, hey, you got a call from Tom Long or Jim Moriarty. You had to get off the runway, go to the phone, pick it up. Now, you pick your cell phone up, you don't even get out, and you just, oh yeah, it's snowing like hell here.
Technology,
And the
unbelievable.
technology, and just think what it's going to be in another 50 years. Dick and I, we're going to have to do this another. These guys ain't going to make it. We're going to do this in 50 more years.
The
We're gonna
hardest
have to-
thing was the Roman numerals, dealing with the,
Well, the airport industry is a pretty close-knit family.
Oh, yeah.
I look at it as a family, because we talk to each other, and we communicate back and forth.
But, you know, it was all from the snow symposium. And, you know, and again, it's exchanging
Our
ideas.
ideas came from that snow symposium.
It's
Still
amazing
do.
how many ideas. I mean this.
Still
The
do.
manufacturers, Bob said it, they listen. They pick up on it. Say, oh, that's what the guys want. Well, we should do that. But they all come from the guys that operate the equipment.
so let me pose a closing question. We're going forward, the 51st year, the 60th. What do you think we want to see?
What do I want to see?
What do
we
you see?
want to see?
You know, the point is, yeah, keep doing it right.
I can't even
I want to
imagine.
see it stay as it is, as far as the workshops, how it's laid out for the boots, and for the mechanics. Keep it. Now, that's what Balkan wanted. He wanted, number one,
He was a hands-on guy.
he was a hands-on guy, and that's how the award came about. He wanted to recognize the people.
Right.
Not the people in the front office, not the people upstairs,
The crews.
but the crew.
I think it's a lot tougher today because you have more regulation.
Oh,
I wouldn't want to do what they're doing today because you have different problems, be it with unions, and like I said, the regulations, the do's and the don'ts. I mean, my God, you got to go to school for everything now, and there's so many different issues. I mean, to cross a runway, well, when was the last time you were to school to cross a runway? I go to school every day. Well, that doesn't count. You got to go to a specialized school. So
Gotta get a
And 139
certificate.
training, I mean, that's new. I mean, we
I'm
we
just
didn't
saying,
always have that.
it's a different time. It has its whole different set of problems, like from communications to operations to regulations.
It'll be interesting to see where this goes in another 25 years.
Well, I really think
And
it's
see-
like Jim said, if they keep it for the people that move the snow, I mean, it is a snow symposium. If they keep it for the people
Not
that
to-
move the snow, regardless of the changes and
I'm
the
just saying the
different rules and
format, the
regulations.
format has to change with the times and the issues, and they have to
You mean
do.
at the snow symposium?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I think we did that,
and we
though.
had
I
the
think they're
issues
still
that
doing it.
we had to address too. You know, we had to address the
Yes, we
chemicals,
did.
the friction, the size of the
Whatever was the
That was
hot
all
topic.
new. That was all new
deregulation, that
for
was
us.
all new.
Yeah.
But we always stayed with the times. Whatever the hot topic was, we tried to incoup it for the
For the
snow
general
symposium.
sessions, yeah.
So that the people that were, even if when we had a good speaker come, there was a lot of ears out there that could go back and listen and say, oh yeah, this is good, or this is what's coming down the road, be prepared.
And we try to get the guy that wrote the regulations from the FAA to come in and explain them.
And we did. We had
Yeah.
that several times. They were very well attended sessions too, believe it or
We've
not.
had some good speakers. We've had some great speakers,
Oh,
met some
have we
great
ever.
people. But the thing is, communications with airport to airport. Young, like when we did, like I said earlier, we didn't know each other. Until this day, we're still friends. But we met because we weren't afraid to speak or ask a question, like in the workshops. After the sessions were over in the evening, there's a lot of things settled in a book.
Well, really.
And I think the committee now is doing a great job.
Well, that's the key, is to keep the mission.
The mission, yeah.
Keep that going.
Keep it simple.
Exchange of
keep it
ideas
good.
for the workers.
Make it affordable, keep the guys trained, and have a good time, be up to date technology-wise.
And
You gotta
look,
be
50
cutting
years
edge.
later, it's still getting better and better. And I remember in Allentown talking to Wiley one time, just in a general conversation. He was amazed. He said he never thought there would even be a second snow symposium because of they didn't know, they were winging it like
Yeah.
we used to. But he said, I didn't think there'd ever be a second. And look at it, 48 years later, we're doing the 50th. And I mean, there's only two things more, Subway and the Super Bowl,
Well,
50 years.